Hi, I'm Peter Buckle, and this is Design Office Hours, a podcast about design, designers, and careers in design. I love to talk about creating, leading, and navigating creative work at this place we call work or office. It's work after all. Whether you're a student, just starting out, or an established designer, welcome to the show. This show is also about your input, so send in your topics and questions. How to get in touch with me in the show. Email designofficehours@peterbuckle.com. Type it, record it, AI voice type record it. Follow me on Instagram @designofficehours and head over to peterbuckle.com/designofficehours. Sign up for my mailing list to get notified about new episodes, as well as fill out the form to send in a question from there as well. So many ways to get in touch with me. All right, let's get into it. What is on the menu for today? We have a question. So many questions. It's a good one. It's about promotion. Oh boy, that's a juicy topic, and that's a topic we can easily create some more episodes here. Let me know. But let's get to the question. The question is how to make a case for yourself when there are no set standards/metrics at your workplace for promotions. And then, given that you are doing all the work that a senior, in this case, a senior industrial designer is already doing. So, multiple things here to unpack, but it's, I guess, a somewhat classic case. And yeah, let's talk about it. So, from this question, we're taking that a person wants to get promoted to, or is aspiring to get promoted to senior designer. We're also taking away that eventually there is an assumption and maybe observation that this person is doing already, like it's a self-observation. This person is doing already the work that a senior designer does. Okay. I think it is. It also says it has no set standards or metric. So I think what I would suggest here is go and seek the conversation with your manager. I think that needs to be sort of like a sit down, and probably there are regular one-on-ones and they talk about things. Ideally they are. And in one of those, I think I would start bringing up this topic of like, hey, I want to get to the next level. How am I going to do this? The question says there are no set standards and metrics. Okay, let's assume there are not, but you could still ask, what does it take? Can you explain this to me? I would suggest, or I would think, this is not really just a one-off conversation. I would suggest this is the beginning of a row of conversations that are sort of going towards this going to go towards this direction of getting you the knowledge of what you need to become, in this case, a senior industrial designer. And once we have this, what sets you on the path to achieving this? Now, in this particular question, there's also a point made of like this person has the reflection that the work of a senior designer is already being done. Now, you gotta have to do the work of the level that you get promoted to some extent already before you get promoted, right? Now, is it 100%? You have to do that 100%? I personally don't think so. I think there are always things that you can only sort of really get to when you're at this new level. That's especially visible when you sort of change from individual contributor to manager, right? Oh, that's another lovely episode we can do. But in this particular case, so having done the work, or to some extent, the kind of critical parts that a senior industrial designer does at this particular job, if you're doing this already, then okay, this conversation or these conversations with your manager you should bring this up, right? And it's not like, I don't expect this to be like a Western movie sort of stand up with guns. No, this is a friendly conversation ideally. And next to asking, hey, so I want to know what does the next level entails? And by the way, I think I'm kind of doing this already, or here are the points that I think I'm doing already, right? I think in this conversation, you also want to check in with your manager and your observation. Is he or she agreeing on your observation, right? Maybe it's something that you're like, oh, okay, I thought I was kind of already there, but maybe there was this other detail that so far you eventually have not considered. But let's assume that is all sort of, there, and you get the agreement of like, yes, this is already all done, and you're operating on this level. Then I think the next step would be, okay, what is missing? What are the things? Ideally, they get identified, right? In an agency, it might be, oh, you should, I don't know, lead a project more independent, or you should represent in front of a client, or own a client relationship front to end in a in-house design team company. In a corporate environment, there might be things with like you should lead a project front to end, you should navigate this with stakeholders, relationship building, and whatnot. And again, there's room here for another episode on this. It's a deep topic, I would think. But back to this question. So we're going to figure out then, so what's missing, and we're going to figure out your manager should at some point provide how will you be exposed, or how will opportunities provided to get you to these missing parts, right? I believe that as a manager, even though the opportunities may not immediately on hand, right? So maybe a certain project that would be required to close a certain gap is not immediately showing up, or it's not on the radar. Let's say it's an agency and it seems like it's not going to be this year, then I would challenge the manager, okay, what else can we do that trains that skill on my side, that gets me ready for this, right? Either when the project comes then, so I'm like, getting to sort of train to then perform, or, I'm training as in a different way. I'm demonstrating my ability here so that we can at least make progress on like ironing out gaps or issues, or no, not ironing out gaps. What do you do with, you're ironing out creases, fill in the gaps, right? You fill in the gaps that you may have. I think ultimately what this also will show you, what type of manager is your manager, right? I think in a good sort of scenario, this would be a conversation that goes over multiple weeks or more frequent, right? So it depends also when you ask this question in the year. Is it, the end of the fiscal year when promotions are usually around? Ideally, I would start this conversation sort of halfway to go, half year to go to until the fiscal year ends. So when the promotion cycle is approaching, you have had this conversation or this row of conversations already. It's not coming at a surprise. So I mentioned it shows you what type of manager you have. Ideally, your manager is like, yeah, okay, fair point. So let's talk about it. And, if there is, as this question sort of suggests, no set standards and metrics, then ideally you both start developing a plan that gets you to this level. And it's kind of on you a little bit to eventually check in. Ideally, your manager does it, but if not, you bring the table back again and again. Maybe not every week, every 1-on-1, but maybe when the time is right or when progress was made, right? But I suggest if your manager is somewhat evasive on this topic, bring it back. Again, it shows you what type of people you're also reporting to. I think one other way to check left and right is talk to other people in that studio or company or team that you're working in, right? I don't know from this question, but talk to people and sort of interview them a little bit. How was your career path here? How did you get promoted, right? How did this work out for you? What did you do? What was involved? What project? So it's something just sort of, I would say, establish that intel so that when you talk to your manager, you have a bit of a better feeling, and maybe it leads to even reframing one of your questions or approaches of how to start this conversation, right? Maybe it even leads to, okay, I haven't really done this here. I guess I still have this gap. Doesn't matter. You should still start talking to your manager about this and sort of start, again, plant a seed. I want to get to the next level here. This is important to me, and rightfully so, it should be. Tell me what's needed. Worst case, you'll learn from other people, oh, you know what? I haven't seen a promotion in like years. I'm still at the same level that I got in here after years. Well, that might be a little bit concerning. Why is nobody getting promoted here? Okay. Let's look at the other side of the table a little bit here. A promotion, a person moved to a new level will also cost more money, right? It will get a different bonus payout. It will get a different, of course, salary. There might be a different benefits key applied that leads to, better health insurance. Yes, that exists. Health insurance level sometimes vary by level. So there might be just obstacles on that side of this equation. There are also scenarios or realities, I would think, right, where one wants to get promoted to a certain level, but this particular team or this particular part of the business just simply doesn't need this level right now. Now that applies more so in higher levels, that I think has to be said, but it is a reality. Now, again, I think knowing this should not disencourage you to talk to your boss, right? Or should not take away from your desire to get to that level. It's just something to maybe just know, just be aware of. I think ultimately, let's say worst case, you hit all the marks consistently. First year, second year, well, maybe not first year if you just started, but over a period of time, you continuously hit all the marks, right? You have this open dialogue with your boss, which would be great because it's also something to build a relationship with the boss, right? It's sort of like enhancing that relationship to the next level. It's something where you may have to speak up for the first time for yourself, especially when you're sort of having entered a job, worked in the job for a while, and okay, now you sort of figured out, okay, I have to watch out for myself here a little bit, so let's talk promotion. So maybe it's the first time a sort of gentle heart-to-heart conversation with your boss, and that's part of growing at a company or a work environment. So, but let's assume you have had this conversation going with your boss, open dialogue, transparent, you hit all the marks, you're killing it, right? And your boss acknowledges this and it's out in the open and yes, this person is ready. Again, the other side of the equation thing that I just explained, budgets, the need for this level, again, probably doesn't apply here. Ideally, at some point, your boss would also say, hey, I know you're ready. I'm sorry, but it's just not working right now. But I think that would speak to a great relationship with your boss, ideally, because ultimately it gives you choice, right? It makes it clear. Because you could also now go and look for somewhere else for a job. Having said that, I think it is in general good to sometimes just go and survey the job market, see what's out there. In this particular case, senior industrial designer, go and look up some job advertisements. What do they need, right? So maybe there's a similar company, a similar role, similar environment. So what does this job description entail? What are they asking for? Maybe you're just, hitting all those, or actually some that you didn't know about, or they didn't stick out that much yet. However, why don't you apply for it? Why don't you try and see how far you get? I think it's good to once in a while check in with the competition, go and interview somewhere, see how far you get, train your skills a little bit. I don't think there has to be an ongoing process along your career, but once in a while, check your market value. And if you're flying through the interview and everything works out and you're like, holy cow, this is going great, and you got it all the way to an offer, see how much money is on the table, right? So that puts your current situation eventually in context. Maybe your current salary is actually not that bad given the level you are, or it's just dramatically bad and the other side is much better. I'm not saying this should be a reason to change jobs, but I think having an offer on hand, or having an offer on hand gives you quite some confidence, can give you quite some confidence when you start talking to your boss and trying to do this conversation. Now, would I write in the first meeting and say, hey, I have an offer, I want to be promoted? I'm not sure. It depends on you. Depends if you want to stay at this company, actually. So again, this is a deep topic. I hope I gave some pointers here on what to do. Maybe to recap this a little bit, right? You have this feeling, you have this observation, you think you're killing it, you're doing all the right things, you think it's time now. Go and start the conversation with your boss. Make this a moment of growth for yourself. I'm like, okay, I have to stand up for myself. I have to talk to my boss, right? Share your observation. Hey, I think I'm killing it. I want to get to the next level. If there is no established standard metrics, whatever, ask for what is needed, right? Explain me. What are the key points? What do I need to hit to be considered for a promotion? Don't think this is just only one conversation. Ideally, it's an open dialogue over a few weeks that sort of brings it up again and again in a professional manner. And ideally, you start this conversation half a year before this promotion cycle is approaching, right? So that it's not a surprise when the time comes and people are supposed to be considered for promotions. Now, one little add here, I said, be considered for promotion, right? It can happen that you have multiple people in your team, and let's say there are 2 or 3 that are up for promotion, right? But there's only budget to promote 1 or 2. As a manager, that's a tough call, right? That's a reality too, right? Then your manager will have to explain this to you or to some, I think ideally you have established this forum of ongoing talks that your manager at some point can explain, okay, here's why the other person got promoted, right? And as a manager, you would, if you have to make this call of like, I have 3 I can promote, but I have budget for 1 or 2, you will find differentiators and you will say, ultimately, no, this person performed here a little bit better, and this is why this person gets the promotion. Maybe this person was also waiting since 2 years to get promoted, right? So, and continued performing on that level. So there's that too. But ultimately, start the conversation start a healthy dialogue and let me know how it goes. Good luck with this, and I hope it will work out in your favor. All right, I hope this was helpful. Promotions, career growth, this is juicy stuff. There's good experiences, bad experiences. Let me hear from you. What are good experiences you had in manager conversations? What are bad experiences you had in your these types of engagements with your leadership? I think there's room for a few episodes to talk about promotions. I mentioned already one, right? What happens if you switch from an individual contributor path over to manager? What to consider, what to expect, what not to expect, what are mistakes I think young managers make, or not young, new managers. You can be a new manager at an old age, actually. So I think I do have observed some of that stuff. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, and I hope you send me your questions. Email designofficehours@peterböckel.com. Head over to the website peterböckel.com/designofficehours, fill out the form, or even comment on Instagram @designofficehours. I hope to see you in the next episode.